This is the Night Shift Podcast, powered by Black and Gold Banneret, your home for news and analysis from all UCF night sports. The Night Shift starts now.
And we welcome you to this edition of Night Shift, as the UCF Knights have lost their fifth in a row. 37-24, I think was the final score. I bailed out. I'm going to be honest, the last minute or two getting ready for the show. I'm Eric Lopez. Don Strouble joining us here, kindly enough to talk to us. You, the fans, are the guests. You're the show, the star of the show. Send in your comments and questions, and we will address them as best as we can, ladies and gentlemen, on this program. Kyle Nash and Bryson Turner are at the Bounce House. They're covering the post-game press conference. They will join us from the Bounce House as for the press conference is concerned. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Lots of other UCF sports will be covered, including basketball season. I promise you guys, basketball season is just around the corner, so we won't have to sit too much longer for football on that. And again, so we're going to break this down against BYU. Where does UCF go from here? Where do they go from the quarterback position? Don, how you doing?
Doing well, Elo. How are you?
You know, oddly, I actually feel okay.
Yeah, there's almost a piece to it, right?
Well, that, and I actually was encouraged by what I saw in the end, and I understand it's going to be classified as garbage time. But I like the fact that Dylan Risk got an opportunity to play, and I like the fact that Dylan Risk was productive, led him to 2 touchdown drives. I understand the game was decided. We're going to downplay it. I get it. But I got to tell you, Don, I liked what I saw. Maybe that's because I'm deprived of success this year. But I've said now for a few weeks that I think the rest of the season now, one of the goals is to find who is your starting quarterback for 2025 if you're UCF. And, you know, we've seen E.J. Colson briefly. Jakari Brown now has gotten a couple of starts. Now you get Dylan Risk in the mix here in the fourth quarter. I like the passion that the kid showed. It looked like he cared. I thought they kind of rubbed off on some of the guys. I understand, again, the game was decided. I'm not saying he's Mackenzie Milne, although he's wearing number 10, which is kind of funny, but weird. But I liked what I saw, and I hope, and we don't know, the Knights have 4 games left in the season. I hope that is not the last we see of Dylan Risk. I think he's earned some snaps, and that keeps me interested and intrigued for this rest of the season. What say you?
I agree with that. You know, I think that this team is about as far. I mean, this is the epitome of rock bottom for this team. And it's like we've talked about on past shows and just amongst ourselves. Yes, this is a team that needs to find their identity and they need to find their future quarterback. And they have 2 young, good quarterbacks in Dylan Risk and E.J. Colson, and both are still a work in progress. They're both very raw talents, it seems. But Risk, he proved himself today in some ways, even though, like you alluded to, it was garbage time. And yeah, we have to put that asterisk there. But that first touchdown drive was impressive. I mean, it was up-tempo, it was fast, and he really seemed to try and ignite a fire within his teammates, despite them likely being on the losing side of this game, which they ultimately were. But I think that, yeah, you have to start putting more stock into this kid moving forward. I mean, this is the 5th loss in a row. They're now 1-4 in conference play, and it just doesn't really seem like you're going to right the ship, especially with Jakari Brown. I mean, 1 touchdown and I believe 4 interceptions in the games that he's played this season. This is back-to-back games now with 2 picks, I believe. I would have to check those numbers. And he's just not getting the ball to his receivers. Now, receivers outside of Kobe Hudson oftentimes aren't getting open. But I just feel like with Jakari Brown, like, yes, they could see him next year, but they need to delve further into their future and either Risk, Colson, or both.
Yes, I agree with that. A lot of that. Let go over the stats. You have the stats in front of you, Don. If you want to try to post them on the chat here, you could. But give me what stands out to you from the stat standpoint. Because to me, the story of the game, BYU controlled the tempo, controlled the pace. I think the first quarter, BYU basically had the ball for 13 minutes. UCF had 2 minutes, basically, of the clock. I think it was 21-8 and change at halftime. And I honestly thought BYU could do whatever they wanted offensively. I don't think UCF defensively had any answers for BYU offensively, balance-wise. And UCF just couldn't muster many long drives. I think there was a point in the game where I posted that 6 of the first 8 drives for UCF went 2 minutes or less, Don. You're just not – that's not good recipe for good to play football. What stands out to you from the numbers standpoint?
Well, I mean, all you have to say, Elo, 40 minutes and 28 seconds possession for BYU, 19 minutes and 32 seconds for the Knights. And like you said, they couldn't get anything going. They couldn't keep their offense on the field. They couldn't keep their defense off of it. And another alarming stat, 2 of 10 on third down. I mean, this is already a team that has struggled on third down. They've posted multiple games where they've only converted 30% on third down. And today to only have 20% is just not good. I mean, it just comes down again to outside of the plays we saw from Risk there at the end. They're just so reliant on RJ Harvey. I mean, there's no semblance of a pass game for this team that can truly get anything going. And no, it's really bad. It's really bad when you break down the numbers and you see the dominance that BYU was able to, hold over this team in terms of offensive time of possession. I mean, they were clearly the better team. They showed that they're a ranked top 25 opponent that is likely going to get into the college football playoff. They keep playing this way. And UCF's year is, I mean, it's tanked. And a lot of the story is not being able to convert on third down, not winning time of possession. But I've never, Elo, seen a disparity quite this bad. Not this season, especially after last week with it being a heartbreaking loss. But it really seemed like we could see this team put up a legitimate fight against these Cougars, after what they showed us last week in Ames. But that wasn't the case.
Well, and apparently the odds makers, the experts, quote unquote, thought the same thing you did, Don, because UCF was actually favored in this game. They ended up being about a 1-2, depending where you looked, a 1 to 2 point favorite. There was a lot of money on UCF.
That's fool's gold. And
I think part of what happened was there were some rumors that the BYU quarterback might not play. Obviously, that was not true. I think some people were questioning BYU on the road. Some people wondered, and I think part of it is because UCF was right there with Iowa State. People are like, well, if you come home, they'll get. But none of that came out to be the case. I felt BYU is a better football team than Iowa State. I think that kind of proved itself. Don't you agree, seeing both teams the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I would say so. I feel like BYU is just more consistent in their approach and their execution. I mean, they seem like a team who really belongs here, where, I mean, no disrespect to Iowa State, but I could see them being upset, maybe even dropping a couple games towards the end of the year. I'd have to look at their schedule, but I believe after seeing the Knights play both teams in back-to-back weeks, I believe it's going to be the Cougars that probably win this conference.
BYU's undefeated. Currently, them and Iowa State top the undefeateds left in the Big 12. BYU plays Utah. That's a big rivalry game. But certainly they have good balance. They give credit to them. I thought they were a more physical team. They were just a better football team, clearly, on that. So, and again, defensively, Don, UCF just had no answers there. They couldn't really put a lot of consistent pressure. Their defensive line made some plays here and there. The only thing I'm skeptical about BYU, they don't seem to trust a running back in the running game. They seem to lean on the quarterback a lot to run. That might catch up with them a little bit, but I just wasn't impressed with the running game as far as BYU with the running backs. But again, it didn't matter today.
Yeah, no, it didn't. It did not matter, and I think it's just. Wow, I would like to see the results of that post-game presser with Gus. I mean, I really I think it's time to see what he has to say outside of the typical stoic responses he's been providing the media on this losing streak. There needs to be an explanation and a way forward to at least get through the rest of the season. And it doesn't help. I understand that, let's give the kids a try and stuff. But when broadcast is putting up QB roulette for UCF, I mean, it really illustrates the lack of stability this year. And it really just also illustrates how much everything is imploding around them. So
but that's what you expect once you pulled the trigger and benched KJ Jefferson. There was no going back. And certainly that didn't work out. We've already gone over that ad nauseum. But I will say this, Don, and I'm not again. I understand the benching and all that. But haven't we learned the last few weeks that the problem went beyond just KJ?
Oh, of course it has. Of course it has. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different facets that we could attack and look at that are just riddled with issues for this team. I think that it's like once they finally get the defense on track and, they're putting up pretty decent defensive stands the last 2 weeks, giving up a ton of points despite, the turnovers and the defense forcing turnovers, almost got 14 points last week if it wouldn't have been for the dropped ball by Braden on the half-yard line. There's so many issues to dive into, Elo. We would really be here all night. It's a problem. It goes so far beyond KJ or Jacurri or anyone in the quarterback room, really.
All right, let's get to some of the comments and questions. People are out in full force here. No surprise there. Matt J., rough season. Thanks for doing the show, boys. Yeah, that's a good point. It's not easy to do these shows, but, we do it because we guys, it's fun. And, got to talk it out, right? Matt J., this season is now about identifying the talent that will be here in the next year or two. 100% agree to me, Don. And I know we're going to get an argument with Kyle about it. Kyle's like, well, we got to play for the bowl game. I don't think anybody, first of all, what have you seen at this point that would suggest that this team is a bowl team? But number two, to me, it's bigger goals are 2025. You've got to get some answers for 2025 of how much do you have to rebuild or retool, whatever term you want to use. Identify. And I like some of the things I saw, as crazy as it sounds. I understand, got outplayed. I like what I saw from Dylan Riss. I like what I saw from Jacoby Jones at wideout. Magwood got some action. I think that's a good thing, personally.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, Jacoby Jones had a heck of a game. I mean, 6 receptions, 116 yards, and a touchdown. And I know, again, some of that coming in garbage time, especially the TD. But, yeah, you have to figure out who your pieces are going to be moving forward because it feels like if this were a pro team, we would maybe use this term more loosely, but it almost feels like we're getting into rebuilding territory. Like, I mean, this isn't they've won a game, they've lost a game. This is a 5-game losing streak, and they just cannot handle the Big 12. I mean, that TCU game feels like last year. And to think that if they would have blown that, they would have been 0-4 in conference play right now. And their only 2 wins would have come against an FCS school and an FBS school in Sam Houston. So it's just, moving forward. I agree with you, Matt.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. Think about it. They were down multiple scores in that TCU game. They were outplayed for most of that game. They're a false start away from a 6-game losing streak. I mean, if you really think about it,
they are.
They've been outplayed at every game. If you want to say Iowa State was kind of a toss-up, fine. I'll give you that if you want to go there.
Iowa State was their best game of the year, in my opinion. It was their best game. Yeah,
it wasn't good enough.
It wasn't.
That is just crazy to me. That is just wild to me. But that's where we're at right now with this situation. But yeah, I think we're going to see young guys. We saw some young guys in the secondary get to play. I got the stats up. 480 yards for BYU, 379 for UCF. Don, 228 passing, 252 rushing for BYU. Don't you feel at times during the game that Gus is like, that's the offense I wanted. That's what I always wanted. he's going against.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's probably what he thought he was going to be getting in the beginning of the season. But from Gus downward, I mean, the team just has not been as advertised. So it's like they will continue to look on to other teams and wish that they could reflect those results, but they just haven't done it. And now with the loss of Kobe Hudson, where do they go now, Elo? Who knows how long he's going to be out for?
It's a great question. Where do they go from here? I think that's a fantastic question. Obviously, Kobe Hudson got hurt early. What did you see on that play on his injury? What were you able to pick up on there? I mean, he went down. The good news is he was still kind of, involved on the sidelines with his teammates trying to help out. Maybe limping. We don't know the terms. Maybe we'll find out something after the game. But what did you see on that play?
So to be honest with you, Elo, I was having trouble with the stream. No matter where I was going, they were still showing Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Like I tried so many different streams. I tried to get to ESPN2, so I actually came in late and missed that play. But I will say this: it's good that he's up and walking and mobile. That goes to show me that it's not season-ending. But given his injury, given the state of the team, could we see him opt to sit out the rest of the year?
Yeah, it's a fair question, especially if you're playing for your future. What else is there to play at this point? Time will tell on that. That's a great question. I think it depends, too, on the extent of the injury.
It does.
On that. Kevin Suarez jumping in. Love the content, fellas. Didn't get a chance to watch, but saw the score and some fans tweeting. You guys are awesome. Keep pushing. Hope Gus can look in the mirror and hope and have an honest conversation with himself. What do you think, Don, that Gus tells himself? What do you think Gus's mind? I almost feel he's got to be a little shell-shocked, right? Like he made all these moves in the offseason. He felt last year wasn't good enough, which I agreed with. Made the coaching changes, got these guys from the portal. I think he's got to be a little shell-shocked. No? What do you think? What do you think his mindset is right now?
I think so, especially after a 3-0 start. I mean, it's hard to say, because we see Gus in the media days and we see him in the post-game pressers, and kind of like what I alluded to earlier, he has this like repetitive stoicism about him. He kind of answers all the questions the exact same way. He kind of, goes back to the same talking points and rests on his laurels of we got to be better. We got to be better. We were outplayed, outcoached. And while those might all be honest answers, I don't think it tells the whole story. And I think he's got to be frustrated. I mean, this is someone who had a ton of success in the SEC. I believe he is the one coach, if not among a very small group of coaches, to beat Saban several times. And that success just hasn't translated at UCF. And this was supposed to be a year where, after his aggressiveness in the portal, this was a team that was in the talks to win the Big 12. And it just feels like they've just gone back to being just a poor team. I mean, I don't really know another way to describe it. Last season was rough. If you want to count the bowl game loss, they finished below 500. This season, you talk about Kyle bringing up bowl games. What bowl game? They're going to maybe beat Arizona, maybe, but that was a pretty decent team to start the year. If I'm not mistaken, they were ranked, correct? So they've
had their own issues, but then again, who are we? Who's UCF?
Yeah, who are we exactly? So it's like at 3-5 on a 5-game losing streak in no direction. I mean, what bowl game? But to digress, I think that Gus is a lot more frustrated and upset than what he leads the media to believe.
No doubt. Let's see. Other comments. Matt J. We lost this game early. Matt Malzahn haters won tonight. Yeah, didn't you feel the game got away from them early? And I thought there was a couple of moments. The end of the first half. Everything that was going on. It's 17-7. Jakari Brown, they're driving, and he just gets called for that unsportsmanlike taunting, where he gets in front of the defender. He runs over the defender, and he's taunting him, sends him back 15 yards. They end up settling for the field goal, makes it 17-10. I tweeted about it. That 2 minutes, those next 2 minutes would be huge, because remember, UCF would get the ball to start the third quarter. Mm-hmm. So the last thing you wanted to do is get BYU the ball. Well, so they settle for the field goal. BYU gets the ball back. And not only do they score a touchdown on a broken coverage. UCF sent some pressure, and Ratcliffe saw that, and he hit his receiver Roberts, who had up until that point had not caught a ball, and he caught a 62-yarder for a touchdown to go up 24-10 right after the half. At that point, UCF did nothing with the ball to start the second half, and it kind of went from down here. But what do you make of that? To me, that was one turning point that I thought stood out in that game. And the other one was early in the game when Gus did not go for it on a 4th and 1 from around midfield, maybe a little bit before midfield, punted the ball. BYU in a similar situation went for it on a 4th and 2, got it. Some people think they got a generous spot. I think it was hard on the replay to see whether it was or wasn't. I don't think they were going to reverse the call on the field. They called it a first down. They weren't going to reverse it. And then they even tried a fake field goal later in that drive. I think they ended up settling for a field goal. But I thought those sequences that I just brought up, Don, were huge early in that first half.
Yeah, I agree with you, Elo. And let's not forget on that successful 4th and 2 conversion by BYU, that was part of a 17-play drive, if I'm not mistaken. So that really will wear down your defense, and that really put them ahead in terms of the time of possession contest that we've seen here. And yeah, I think that slip tackle, that broken coverage underneath, that was just such a crusher for them. And even the broadcast commented on it. I believe they said, if I'm Gus Malzahn, I'm going to need some Pepto-Bismol after that, because it was just such like a stomach dropping, busted series by the defense when you really could have had some momentum going into halftime. And now you go into the half down 2 touchdowns, and nothing's really like the wheels are starting to come off, essentially. So yeah, I agree with you, Elo. Those were 2 key points. Some might disagree given how early it was in the game, but Gus had a chance to show that he was going to be an aggressive decision maker and try not play it safe, especially with a questionable defense and offense. And he didn't take that chance.
Let's see. Let's get to some comments here. A couple more comments. Let's see. Eric Edwards, it's tough to play in the Big 12. It's very hard. Utah went 5-7 in their second year in a Power 5 perspective. Stephen Gonzalez, the problem in the staff starting with the head coach. Obviously, there's that. So there's very opposite point of views there. What do you make of that? Year 2 of the Big 12 transition versus, hey, you're just not getting it done on the field. Is the answer somewhere in the middle there, Don?
I'd say it's probably somewhere in the middle. I mean, this is a team that's adjusting from coming to the American to a big football conference. And while the Big 12 will mainly be characterized as a basketball conference, it's got some heavy hitters. And we've seen that in the form of Iowa State and BYU in the last 2 weeks, both teams that have a very good shot of making the college football playoff, and would not be surprised to see them going head-to-head in the Big 12. And yeah, BYU had a rough year last year, but I feel like BYU historically has shown that they can put together a formidable team that's worthy of top 25 ranking. And so is UCF. And that's the sad part, is that we're in a situation where on paper, at least with Gus coming in, you think that this might be the best and well-experienced coach that they have. And just seeing this transition into this conference, it's just been rough. And I wasn't at UCF yet last year, but I did follow the team as much as I could. And I really didn't think it could get worse than that. And it's gotten worse than that. So we'll see. I think it's somewhere in the middle, but there's going to have to be a lot of soul searching and a lot of overhaul if they're going to find success moving forward in this conference.
You're correct. We got more comments coming in. It's busy, Don, where we not only have comments in our own chat room, we got comments on the YouTube channel. We got comments coming out of everywhere. We're getting blindsided with blitzing, man. Holy mackerel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we need Kyle and Bryson to join the show. Well, don't worry, audience. They will be here with us soon, and we appreciate you coming to hang out. We call this therapy for a reason. It's been 5 straight weeks of that. Eventually, we'd like to come in here and celebrate with you and talk about the good things. But since the middle of September, there hasn't been any good things, it seems. So
Matt J chimes in. Kalani Sataki, the BYU head coach, would be fired if the administration was listening to the fan base. They're now in the top 10. Obviously referencing the BYU's early struggles that clearly they're not having this year as a team that's in the top 11, Don. I think that's interesting. Patience, the word there, but certainly hard to say when you're struggling, losing 5 in a row. Steven Gonzalez, we're not making any bowl game. Let's see what else we got. I mean, more, man, these comments are just coming in flow. Let's see. Emma. Oh, we got Evelyn Warner coming in. Seniors are just doing time. You have no idea. I have no idea what the problem is. Oh, he's talking about Eric Edwards. He doesn't know. Okay, I thought for a second they were saying, I don't know what the problem is. I mean, maybe I don't know what the problem is. All right, so we got some chit chat. It's a lot going on. We'll keep going back to that. I want to talk about certain individuals a little bit here. Because obviously I'm very interested now in some individuals. First of all, can we give another shout out to Dotson, who had another strong game up at the defensive front. Dalen Dotson, 8 tackles, 7 solos, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for a loss. 2 straight weeks, I think he's played very well.
He has. Yeah.
And I thought that was very interesting. Another storyline from the game was Chasen Johnson, the freshman, getting his first start. I'll be curious to hear what was the reasoning behind that. But a couple of, certainly a couple of defensive starters not playing today there. What was your thoughts on that, Don, when that came out?
I mean, I think that it's one of those things where you have to see who's going to go out there and make the plays for you. And I think that Dotson has been excellent, and Johnson as well. I mean, you see like 4 solo tackles. It shows that he's active. And I think that really moving forward, the defense is the most positive part of this team, despite their issues. And I think that, you look at guys like Lee Hunter and Deshaun Pace, and they might be the focal points of your defense, but we're starting to see an emergence beyond them, which I think is important moving forward. So you want to look at some positive aspects. If you want to try to pull any silver linings, just look at this stat sheet that we have here live with us, because but moving forward, that's going to be really important for this team.
Next week, UCF will host Arizona State Arizona 3:30. Then they go to Arizona State. Yep. Who do you play at quarterback, Don, if you're Gus Malzahn next week?
Well, it's not quite as big as homecoming weekend, but if it is the space game, so it is going to be of some importance, at least for the university. I'm with you, Elo. I'm going with risk. I liked what I saw. Our guys might disagree with us. We might be in the minority there, but at least we're there together. I just don't see, outside of like mobility, I just don't see it with Brown. I don't think his field vision's there. I don't think he has his receivers, no disrespect to them, are not talented enough to uplift him and make him seem like a truly competent, good quarterback. I think he's somewhere around average, and I think that they need a new lease at life at that position. So I'm personally going with risk. I just don't think EJ is quite there yet. I mean, we're talking about a kid who's not even 18 years old. I think he needs to sit and learn a little more. But we've seen Risk put together some drives, so that's my vote.
I'm with you. Look, you got 4 games left. Dylan Risk has now played in 2 games this year, which you did a good job breaking down. EJ has appeared in 2 games. Unfortunately, last week he came in for a snap because Jakari Brown had to step out of the game because he lost his helmet on the play, apparently, which really stinks because that cost you a game. I would have loved EJ not to that count against him. I think that's terrible.
Yeah.
I think both of them should play the rest of the year. Now, and here's we get caught up in this whole red shirt stuff. Let's be real. How many of these guys these days are going to stick around for 4 or 5 years in the same school? Probably not many.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. It's a different world now. Okay, so that's a long shot to begin with, just with one guy. Mm-hmm. Do you really believe both Risk and EJ are going to stick around for 4+ years here together? No, like that is even further. So play both of them. Now, I think there's a creative way, Don, if you are that, because your concern is, I don't think EJ's ready. He's 17 years old. I think that's fair. That's fair. You got 4 games left. You could play EJ in 2 of those 4 games.
You could.
And still keep the red shirt.
You could.
What's the harm there? Now, and I'm not saying you have to play him the whole game. Maybe you give him a half. Maybe you give him some drives just to get his feet wet. And I think with Dylan, I think you got to, if you're Dylan, if you want an opportunity to be the starting quarterback for 2025, I wouldn't worry about redshirting. I would just say, give me the reps, give me the snaps. I'll take over if I have to, and make a statement to this coaching staff that says, you know what? I'm better than the 4th string quarterback. I'm your guy. Give me the chance. And if he could get those opportunities, and let's say he thrives on that, now he's in the mix to be a starter next year and maybe be the starter. I would play both. I am willing to listen, Don, to your case about EJ not being ready. Maybe you don't throw him every game. Maybe you throw a couple games with him. What I think we both seem to agree, and I'm not saying Jakari Brown shouldn't play anymore the rest of the year, though some people in the chat are saying that. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. But I do think other guys should get the opportunities as well the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think that there's a twofold point here that you can look at from both sides. It would not be a good look if you went and benched another quarterback in the same year, especially after going all in on KJ. But yeah, I think that, maybe the QB carousel is the way moving forward, especially if they lose next week for any reason. Then you're really in a hole. And this is a lost cause, because the best case scenario, you went outright through November, you finish 500. But yeah, now I think that maybe it's time to take a page out of our neighbors in Gainesville and Billy Napier, what they've done with Graham Mertz and DJ Lagway all season long. I think it's important for Colson to get the reps despite his age, because if you have any reason to believe that can be the guy moving forward, that's not someone you want to lose to the portal. You want to show him, hey, we're going to give you game action and a chance. Go earn that job instead of dangling it above his head, So I think that's a fair point to make too. And the same goes for Dylan Risk. I think that it give them reps, especially depending on game context. If you're getting blown out again, what's the harm,
I love the move of going to Risk here with the game out of hand here today. I know there was some disagreement about that. I thought that was the right move. You got to try different stuff at this point. And I know people, I don't care about the bowl situation. I've been very consistent. Let me play some other guys. DF Aust has chimed in. BYU lost 7 in a row last year. Give your coach a break. Wow. That sounds like I heard BYU person. It's a good point. Things change in a year, man. It's a good point. Let's bring in Bryson Turner, who is with us. Are you in the press box, Bryson? We don't hear you, Bryson. So you might be muted.
No, I am in the booth just to the left of the press box. Actually, 2 rooms left of the press box. This is where the visitors' coaches were. Okay. This is just so I can have a place to duck into to talk, so that way I don't disrupt anyone else in the press box while working. So, not pain. This is the 3rd time in program history that UCF has consecutive homecoming losses. The other ones were in 1984 to 1986. The other one was 2015, 2016, and now 2023 to 2024.
What was the homecoming loss last year?
Last year, West Virginia.
Thank you. Okay. That was homecoming. Oh, that's right. Shaq was there. Okay. I forgot. Thank you. All right. Thanks for the memory.
It was it's unfortunate to see that happen, but it is the number 11 team in the country. They're ranked number 11 for a reason. But that being said, given how much BYU dominated the time of possession, it kind of felt like in the first half we were hanging on pretty well. But then that I feel it was funny. Ricky Barber, who we talked to in the postgame presser, said this was kind of the turning point of the game, was that touchdown from BYU late in the first half, just before it went to half, that ended up he said that was the big turning point of the game. And I'm inclined to agree with him, because not without that touchdown, we get the ball back and we have a shot to tie the game up, if I remember. And so the fact that BYU essentially put that out of reach at that point really, I think, is a big demoralizing factor going into the second half, especially already having lost Kobe Hudson. I mean, this is I don't know if I would consider this a new low, but let's put it this way: UCF didn't exactly provide a lot of fans reason to be optimistic going forward.
Well, we did talk about that 2-minute sequence you're talking about right before, after the 2-minute warning. UCF's driving. Jakari Brown commits the taunting penalty, which was the right call. 15-yard penalty, puts them back. They have to settle for a field goal. Then BYU comes back, scores on a 62-yard touchdown play, go up 2 touchdowns, when UCF could have easily kept it a 1-score game if things would have gone differently. So we did touch on that. Since you obviously were at the postgame presser, Kyle, how's Kyle doing? Is he okay?
Well,
is he all right?
So I saw him in his corner of the field, and I'm thinking maybe he might have technical issues just trying to get connected on the field right now. Last I saw him, he was walking into back under the concourse. So we'll see if
I know that very well.
Find a place to get in.
We'll let him while we deal with that. Let me ask you this. What did Gus Malzahn have to say about Dylan Risk and his performance and moving forward with the quarterback position?
He said that basically they would look at the film and determine it from there. But Gus said that they did not play great football today, and he took that in, and he said what he normally says. It starts with him essentially, and he's very disappointed that it ended up like that. There was one question that was asked where they I feel like that it might have alluded to the vitriol that maybe he's experienced a little bit. The student section was chanting "Fire Gus" as they were going into the locker room, and the students certainly gave him some mixed receptions at Spirit Splash, which I was at yesterday. And coach basically said, like, well, we got to play better football. So he is cognizant of, I feel like, of the criticisms that is his way right now. But in the end, it's just, you got to play better. You got to play better football. And he seems like he's a very straightforward guy in that sense.
Trust me, Gus has been booed louder at Auburn. This is part of the job. George O'Leary used to get booed too, so in that same stadium. So
actually, I have a question for Bryson, Elo, if I may.
It.
So, Bryson, you talk about his cognizance and understanding that they have to play better, but do you, from a media perspective, feel that we're kind of seeing a repetitive stoicism from Gus? Obviously there are cliche answers in the world of sports, but do you feel like we need to see a better response from him or some form of identification beyond the same old, not tropes, but basically his talking points and the way he conducts himself?
I mean, you have to have consistency with the way you conduct yourself, I feel like. I mean, Gus is the person that he is, and he, is a very straightforward type of person, I think. Obviously, they have to look at the film. He mentioned about having to look at the film a couple of times during that. And so I think that just by the very nature of the post-game press conference and how it happens directly after the game, where you don't really have the opportunity to really look at film that much. It's just, he's just trying to be able to give as best an answer as he can give in that moment in time with the type of information that he has. So it's a valid question, don't get me wrong, but I think that, just with the circumstances that Gus finds himself in post-game press conferences, that he just answers things a certain way, and, but also is cognizant of taking responsibility, because he realizes that this stuff falls on him, which is why with the value of play, I do respect Gus as a person. Obviously we got to criticize his job because that's what is going on right now, but in the end, I do respect Gus as a person, especially when he conducts himself like he does. And we now have Kyle Nash, who has managed to find a place to join us from the concourse of FBC Market Stadium. What happened on the field, Kyle?
You're asking me to solve IT issues here on the field? Listen, I can't get all the signal to come in, and apparently all the hate from all the other media brethren are taking up all the airwaves here. So let's get something going, bro.
Listen, the stadium right now has a lot of issues right now that we're not even going to get into on this show, based on what I've seen and read.
I have my sources too, Eric Lopez.
It's not even. This might be the smallest of problems the stadium has here.
Right.
All right, Kyle, give me your thoughts here. I'm getting a little echo, by the way, on your end, Kyle, I think. Okay. I'm not sure, a little sound there. So we'll see. We'll figure it out, folks. It's live. It's live, people. Night Shift is live.
Do it live.
Your thoughts on what Gus said in the postgame and overall your thoughts on this game today.
Yeah, I mean, to act surprised that there's anything else other than a dude trying to find answers. I mean, what else can listen? And I know the whole fire Gus thing, the bus Gus is broken down, all this other stuff. I'm not mad at fans for complaining, fans being fans. I'm okay with that part of it. But where I think it's harder for me to kind of criticize as harshly, listen, I don't know what anybody else thinks, but Kobe Hudson going down tonight had its own, for lack of a better word, spiritual injury to the team of sorts. Now, do they still need to be able to play football? Of course. Should the standard still be to try and go and win a football game? Of course. There's certain things that happened tonight, guys, that I don't know that you can put on Gus, but by the same token, there are certain elements and certain pieces from an effort standpoint that I was highly questionable of that you have to put on the coach first. And I believe Gus Malzahn would tell you there's a lot of elements that he would put on himself first that have to be better.
Let me ask you, what was said about Kobe Hudson after the game, injury-wise? Do we have an update?
Yeah, coach said he wasn't sure how severe it was. They're still going to have to, wait for whatever from doctors or whatever. I would imagine some sort of imaging would be required, but no official word at this point. Just based on what I've seen, I'll put it this way to say I'd be very surprised if he plays in the space game next week. That's based on what I saw with him limping.
Yeah, I remember seeing him go down, and he was not putting any weight on that right leg as he was being assisted off the field. But when he did exit the medical tent, he was walking. He just had a limp. At the very least, it looked better than what it looked like when coming off the field. Let's put it that way.
I'll put it this way. As somebody who's had injuries during games and things like that, what you're trying to do immediately afterward is not commensurate with what happened. There have been certain things where I felt fine and I actually, tore an ankle or something really bad. And there's been others where I didn't feel a bit of pain at all. And it turned out I broke my foot. So, take all of anything we're saying and that we see with a grain of salt, just whether, more to come is probably the best way to answer that question.
Was the question asked in the postgame, Chase Johnson, young freshman, got to start in the secondary defensively, was called for a PI, which I thought was a tough call. It felt like it was a call that they called it on him because he's a freshman, whether, whatever. But nonetheless, he got the start over a veteran who did not play, evidently. Tennyson didn't play. Yeah. Was any comment there, postgame, Kyle? Or
no, these were both injury pieces, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Coach had said that Ladarius Tennyson had experienced vertigo before the game. He wasn't ready to go. We didn't really hear any details on that. And then he had said that Mac was wanting to play, but they just felt he wasn't quite ready yet. So those were the words from Gus as far as those two veteran DBs not playing. Say what you will, it certainly felt like that made an impact in certain elements of the defense tonight.
What do you think went wrong with the defense? We're going to get to the quarterback position, guys. Don't worry. There's been a lot of questions about the quarterback. We'll get to that. But I do want to ask about the defense here, Kyle, because I've said here earlier, I thought there was some good play from the defensive line at times. I thought Dotson was fantastic. All right,
I knew you were going to call him out, too.
I got to tell you, I'm falling in love with this guy. 2 weeks in a row, he's been fantastic. DeMar Dotson. I think he's been their best defensive player personally the last couple. You could say Brandon Adams last week was good as well. I just love what I've seen from him inside the defensive line. So credit to him and a couple of the other guys there.
Well, you know who agreed with you in your assessment, Eric Lopez, was Ricky Barber. Just what Dotson's done. I think first thing I have to say, Dalen Dotson's a dog. Somebody asked about Dotson's performance and what you guys were doing, what they were doing up front with him. And I think the thing that's interesting is playing inside at the defensive tackle spot. Ricky Barber had mentioned that was him playing out of position. And when he stepped in to help on the edge, I don't know Kelly's situation right now where he's at with, he had the turf monster in Iowa there impact him last week. I don't know where he's at exactly, but I can tell you that he was filling into play, certainly with other, let's just say, elements of the edge rush, no longer affiliated with the program. He's come in and impressed everybody. He's a threat they can have inside or out. That's really the kind of thing you more see in the NFL where you move a guy around. But they did it here tonight, got sufficient pressure. And, hey, listen, we all know how much our friend Jeff Sharon loves turnovers. Dalen Donson, responsible for the one turnover the defense calls tonight.
I think he's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed watching him play, and I want to give him a salute. I know it's a negative time right now in the program, but I want to go a positive route with him because he's working his tail off, and he's playing well, and I think he deserves salute for that. However, I can't say that for everybody else on the defensive side.
Yeah.
In particular, the backside. BYU controlled the time of possession. It was on their pace. I thought UCF had a lot of trouble with BYU when they did the pitch play in particular.
Yes,
I thought UCF did a good job with the traditional running plays as far as between the tackles for the most part. I know BYU scored one of the touchdowns on a traditional run, 15 yards. But I thought the pitch play gave him some fits. The play action, UCF linebackers, I thought had a tough time with it. Ethan Barr, I thought, struggled there. And then certainly not a ton of pressure from a quarterback situation. What did you see there from the defense then?
Yeah, first of all, excellent call on that pitch. They were doing what they could. They were attacking the edges. And what have we said for weeks here on this show here on Night Shift Live that you're watching, hopefully on the Black and Gold Banner YouTube channel? Bing! What have we been talking about is that outside run and the edge being an issue, right? That pitch already puts the running back or whoever's getting the ball, typically the running back, right, outside of the lane. And then if you have the edge collapsing inside, undisciplined, not keeping their gap, it's real easy for them to get out there. And then you're left with a favorable matchup with the DB, assuming he's not blocked off the ball, which give credit to BYU. They're a pretty complete team for a team that UCF was favored over going into this contest. I still don't understand that. And don't worry, I make plenty of jokes about it in night class, which will drop tonight on the blackandgoldbannerette.com. Bing! So, yeah, I think that pitch play was an issue, and it certainly set up the throw down the field. We had heard leading up to it, I think Gus even called it out in his Monday presser, that their quarterback was going to be a threat. You saw some good connections there. He made some solid runs off of things that were broken down, sometimes through the middle, but would often take advantage of the edge. The fake punt affected the outside. Granted, it's not typical edge defenders, but no discipline. It completely caught them off guard. Clearly the worst moment for the special teams on the night, no question. But yeah, there's a lot of that. I feel like it didn't feel like a complete talent mismatch as it had in other games, Eric Lopez. But for this one, yeah, I listen. They had a very, what's his word? Various. Just a lot of different looks.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it a scheme issue? Because I know last year we focused a lot on scheme. Is it scheme? Is it players? I feel like at times the 11 players are not on the same page. It seems like some players are doing their own thing when they shouldn't be doing that. I don't, again, maybe I'm reaching for things there, but what are you seeing there of why that has been an issue?
Well, in particular to attacking the edge, I think that part may be a talent problem. And one of the issues, you got injured guys and you have, if you tell me the place on the defense that maybe volume-wise, percentage-wise, has the most uncertainty about its depth, how would you not say the edge at this point, right? And I know there's some DBs that redshirted and transferred. I know there are some DBs that were hurt. I know all of that. But volume-wise, I feel like that impact has really come in at the edge rushers. And the guys who were starting in Malachi Lawrence and Nikhil Kelly just are not delivering at the level that was thought they would. So I think all those things, that's why they take advantage of that edge. And for me, listen, I'm going to call it what it is. There were some effort plays, I feel like, in the secondary where they had opportunity to cancel something out and didn't. Specifically, and I don't know if Bryson's brought it up, but I know he made a note to remember it in the press box. The 4th and 1 in the first quarter was absolutely horrendous, and I would say borderline embarrassing. And I even asked Ricky Barber after the game what he thought the turning point of the game was. He said the end of the first half, where the defense, there was a I'll call it a tackle, though I wouldn't call it that. It was more of a push to try to get the guy out of bounds. Didn't get out of bounds because it was a half-hearted hit, and 62 yards to the house to change what should have been a 17-10 halftime deficit to a 24-10 halftime deficit. UCF gets the ball in the second half, has an opportunity to tie. Instead, they're down 2 scores. And I think Ricky Barber's right. That turnaround right there blew everything up.
Yeah, I remember the tackle, that tackle attempt that you were talking about, Kyle. I actually have the visual of it in front of me right now, and it still boggles my mind that this resulted in a first down. It was 4th down and short. 2 UCF defenders had him behind the line of scrimmage, and yet it resulted in a first down.
And Bryson, that's not the worst part, though. Even after that, so the guy gets through, they're swarming. There's more contact beyond the line of scrimmage, but short of the first down line, and the job just couldn't be done. It's just, yeah. At least in the past with the swarm tackles, Bryson, like you're pointing out, they would eventually get the job done. They did not do that tonight, generally speaking.
That's good. Don, you got a question for the staff?
Not really. I mean,
Don, it's time.
No. Here, let me teach the rook a little bit. Here's your question, especially as the basketball guy. So, Kyle, you ready for basketball yet?
Yeah, for real. Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Here's something I want to ask you guys that I don't think you brought up yet. But have you guys gotten a chance to talk about RJ Harvey yet? Like probably the one other good.
We don't want positivity. This is a therapy session.
Listen, he did his thing. That's fine. He had the one big run, but I mean, it didn't matter.
In Bryson's defense, he has some history to bring out. I think this is worth mentioning.
Just a cool tidbit.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, RJ ended up continuing his climb up the UCF record book tonight. His 2 rushing touchdowns brings him up to 34 for his career. That's 3 away from Latavius Murray, for 3rd all-time in program history. So he's continuing to do that. He surpassed Willie English for the 3rd most career rushing yards in program history, as we kind of thought he would. But what's even crazier is that now he's at 3,232 career rushing yards. He is now well within the ballpark of Alex Haynes, who for number 2 all-time rusher in program history. And then I also just found this out. With his 5th 100-yard rushing game of the season, he has now broken a tie with Willie English and one other back that I am blanking on at the moment. But he is now 2nd alone for the most 100-yard games in a career rush in program history. So RJ is just. He's reminding me more and more of Alex Haynes, Eric Lopez, where he seems to look like one of the best running backs this program has seen. But 1, volume, and two, the team is just not. The team success doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah, I was gonna say both are on track to be playing in their final seasons with no bowl games. So there you go. That's where that's headed. Let's get into this.
Jagger Lopez.
Gotta move it along. Let me ask you about the quarterback position. That's been a hot topic. Jakari Brown starts. I think he ended up going 8 for 17. Right. Dylan Risk comes in. Kyle, you and I had exchanged messages. Do you bring in a reliever here at mop-up duty, if you will? You said, no, let them get the chemistry going, all that. They bring in Risk. Risk leads him into 2 touchdown drives. I understand the game was settled, but I thought he brought some energy, some boost. I think people are wondering about what they're going to do with the quarterback room starting next week here. What say you here? Your thoughts on what you saw from Dylan Risk?
Yeah, no, and to shed light, the question originally posed was, should they come out with E.J. Colson? And I still think the answer to that is no. But to your point, I think Dylan Risk has played himself into a position where if they come out with Jakari Brown and there's trouble early, don't be shocked, especially against an Arizona team during the space game that seems beatable, right? The one thing this team has to cling to is landing the plane with bowl eligibility. And if that's gone, the level of that failure will make the offseason very treacherous for what's going on with the coaching staff and things like that. You know, we may truly see the Gus Bus, in the run there if they don't at least make bowl eligibility. And I think you and I can both agree, Eric Lopez, that's a catastrophe for this season.
But if you find your quarterback for next year and people feel good about it, I think that is a positive. I think Dylan Risk should play.
Mm-hmm.
Bryson, don't you agree with me that I think the fan base will want to see Dylan Risk if Jakari Brown gets off to a slow start? They'll make their voices heard very loud and clear who they want at quarterback if Brown gets off to a slow start, Bryson. There's a lot of people in the chat right now that want to see Risk get some reps.
Let me put it this way. KJ strikeout. Jakuri has looked to have struck out at this point. EJ Colson is not really given, or at least it's not, we're getting doubts about Jakuri. EJ Colson is not, I would argue, has not been given a fair shake quite yet because of, as Kyle has talked about over and over, the turnover that happened and all that.
One
Dylan
pass
Risk,
and then the turnover of the next play. Exactly, yeah.
Right. Dylan Risk, though. So Dylan Risk, I would say, is the first is the first quarterback that I feel like the UCF fans maybe will be a little more. I mean, they were optimistic a little bit about Jakuri, but I think Dylan Risk. It seems like we're almost like, meandering around a shop, a mall shop of some kind. It's like, ooh, shiny. Wait, that's not working. Ooh, shiny. And we're seeing that with Dylan Risk a little bit, but I think the difference is that Risk is this is Risk's third game, while Jakari Brown has a lot more league experience. I think that with Risk and Colson, I think it's a matter of how do you want to treat it with the red shirts, because now all of a sudden you have to figure out how to handle that. Of course, with the new era of college football, you have the transfer portal to worry about, and I think that the right move is the relief pitcher thing you kind of talked about. But that being said, do you maybe fight it out between Risk and Colson in practice, and then whoever ends up getting it? Because one of them could easily end up in the transfer portal by the end of this season. And so how do you, handle that type of stuff?
There's a certain element in the undertones that you may not be applying as strongly as I would, Bryson, in this particular thing. And Eric Lopez, you remember this. I know you brought it up last time we talked about it on Night Shift. At one point, E.J. Colson was the second player on the depth chart, right? We weren't even talking about Dylan Risk. Then he lost that footing, right? I think there's an element in this era of NIL. And please remember, before you evaluate what I'm about to say, remember, this isn't a day where coaches assign red shirts and who they may want to preserve and whether it's okay to go ahead and burn a year for a younger guy. That's not what's going on here. You preserve an E.J. Colson because you're more likely to hold on to him going into the coming season. Redshirt him, keep him learning. If he's in a place where he likes where he is and everything's all that, I think it's easier to retain him if you're looking for the long-term future. Dylan Risk is a guy who has been waiting. You give him some reps. You feel like he's building, that he's given an opportunity. You keep him in the building. If he does well, he stays another year. If he supplants Jakari Brown, and then I think that's the ultimate win. Of course, we're all assuming that they're going to come out taking a risk on Dylan to start next week. I don't know that. Yes, I did it, Don. It was funny.
But, it was. I'm not.
But I really think they still need to see what Brown can do for them as well. I can't rule out. Listen, we live in a world where Mackenzie Milton was booed off the field in the Cure Bowl, and then a funny thing happened in 2017. So to give up on a guy...
Yeah, but Jakari Brown has proven he is not an accurate thrower.
Whoa. How can you prove anything?
I saw him in Miami. I saw him play at Miami. This was the Jakari Brown of Miami. I'm not saying don't play him the rest of the year. Let me just emphasize that.
Okay.
I just want to emphasize. I am not suggesting he should not play the rest of the year. All I'm saying is give the kids a chance. And here's the thing. I don't disagree necessarily with Colson. You could still preserve his red shirt play him in 2 of the next 4 games.
And preferably the last 2, just in case someone gets hurt.
However you want to do it. Right. However you want to do it.
Yeah.
You could maybe split with Risk and Colston potentially, each taking turns as a reliever role to preserve both red shirts.
You could do that.
No.
Now, you could do that. I'm not saying I agree with that, but you could do that in theory. But here's the thing. In this day and age, you're not keeping both Dylan Risk and EJ Colson for 4 or 5 years, okay? And so to me, and if I'm Dylan Risk, I want to play now because I have an opportunity here to get the inside track perhaps in the starting quarterback next year here at UCF. I've been sitting and I've been sitting. This is my chance. And if he plays well the rest of the year when he gets his opportunity, however you want to do it, as a starter, as a reliever, whatever, now you're like, hey, I got a chance to be the starter here next year. Whereas EJ, you're so young that you can still wait. You can still wait. I think if you're Dylan, I don't think I would worry about the redshirting because you got a chance to start if you feel that opportunity. So I would play Risk. And again, you could do it in a way where you play them both in 2 games in the next 4 games, and then Jakari finishes it out. I'm not a believer in Jakari as the long-term answer. I want to see what Dylan can do. I want to see a little bit what EJ can do the rest of the way. So at least you feel pretty good about the quarterback room next year. And I got to tell you something. I thought Jacoby Jones looked pretty good today. I thought Magwood showed some signs, and I thought they both were. Again, I thought Risk looked like the best passer that we've seen at UCF this year.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Risk, by the way, is a redshirt freshman. He redshirted 2023, so he might actually have burned his already.
Well, the punchline's this, guys. With Risk, what I find interesting is, remember, guys, when did the big quarterback change happen? It's with the Cincinnati team that was incredibly beatable, right? The Knights didn't beat them. That's a separate conversation. You've been saying, Eric Lopez, that you have little confidence in this Arizona team and that this is another opportunity, perhaps, to start a newer guy against a struggling team, kind of like they did with Cincinnati. They're
at home, by the way. Arizona at home, yeah.
So, and also you mentioned at home, I don't know that you can raise home field level up a notch, but if there's any way to do it, the space game is arguably a way to do so.
Well, and again, Dylan showed some passion. He was energetic. He was excited. Didn't you sense that? I thought the players fed off of that. Listen, I don't know if he's the long-term answer either. I'm not suggesting. But I liked what I saw. Give the kid
and this
a
is
chance.
how you find out. Yeah.
Play him. Yeah. Find out.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I felt like I saw from him is he was able to take off and run with it, but I noticed that he was kind of holding the ball a little weird. So I feel like in practice, maybe some ball control would work, would maybe do him well a little bit because he didn't. Luckily, it didn't bite him this time. But if he's going to take off and run with it like he did today, then that's probably going to be something I would probably work on in practice a bit.
You didn't feel he was securing the ball?
Part of that is youth. Part of that is youth. He hasn't got a lot of reps. I remember Mackenzie Milne also had a problem holding to the ball in his freshman year.
Yes, he did.
He figured it out. Spoiler. There. All right, let me go around the room then. Next Saturday, Don, I'm going to start with you. Then I'm going to go to Bryson, then Kyle. Don, if you're the coach next Saturday against Arizona, blank starts at quarterback. Who's starting at quarterback for you? And how many quarterbacks are you playing against Arizona?
Well, you don't really, like I told you earlier, Elo, it's probably not the best look to go and bench another QB after the situation with KJ Jefferson. So while Brown has not been great, I think you trot him out there. They just played 2 very strong opponents in BYU and Iowa State back-to-back. But I feel like you put him out there, you see what happens, you see if he can get anything cooking beyond, passing for a mid 50% completion percentage and, 1 touchdown and 4 picks, because that's what he's given us this year. If he doesn't get it going, you go to your rotation, and I'm going to Risk first right behind him. I think EJ is still young, very raw. I think while there is a redshirt threat, it's better to keep him on the bench and keep him learning. I don't think that EJ should come in unless there's an injury situation to Risk or Brown, and I'm sure Coach will he will verify the situation as it comes. But yeah, I'm starting with Jacurri, and then if things go south, I'm going to Dylan.
I would say the same thing. I think the biggest change from last night to tonight is that I think Jacurri is just going to be on a much shorter leash than I think before. Like if things are going south with Jacurri, like if there's even a hint of it, then get Rip in there now. And so I think that's the way that I would probably do it. Is it Jacurri still starts, but the moment you sniff something going on and it's going on and something going south, you get Ritz in there immediately. Don't wait for garbage time like they did today.
Yeah, I think Jacurri starting is the answer. Let's remember one more thing too, right? He played better in the Iowa State game in some aspects, but what we learned is you're not going to throw your way back into a game with Jacurri Brown. That's not going to happen. I think there's an element too of being a one-dimensional offense with a quarterback that's young. We saw this with Timmy McClain at Kansas State, Eric. You'll remember that. So I think avoiding that is why you start Jacurri Brown, but Dylan Risk is in there, like you said, at the first sniff that it could become a game where they've taken R.J. Harvey out because the lead is too big for the run to handle it. And, whoever it is you start, you need to come out throwing. The first play cannot be handing the ball to R.J. Harvey. You need to provide that balance, that threat that somebody else other than Harvey might touch the ball first.
Kyle, the defense, though, has to set the tone because the defense might be on the field first. BYU drove on them the opening drive, set the tone on them first. That's the problem. You're playing catch-up, and I do think the secondary injuries you brought up is something worth monitoring this week because Arizona has a great receiver, McMillan. Who's going to cover him? It might be probably, if I had to guess, it would be Adams. But a lot of people, Mel Kiper included, believe that the two best receivers right now in this draft is Travis Hunter and McMillan from Arizona. So
Yeah.
UCF's going to be challenged. And Fafita as the quarterback is very mobile, very good with his legs, better than this BYU kid is. For whatever reason, I think the coaching change has messed him up. Going from Jet Fish to Brennan hasn't gone well. I think they got some injuries defensively. I do think it's a winnable game, but make no mistake about it. The defense is going to have to make some plays against those guys. You can't let McMillan beat you, and that's a concern that I have based on what I saw today from the defensive side of the ball.
You cannot let yourself stay on the field for 40 minutes of football. That's unacceptable.
And again, this is not a catch-up team. Unfortunately, we've learned that. All right.
No running team is a catch-up.
Correct.
Team. Anyway,
we're going to
get me off on a tangent, Eric.
Well, we're going to let you go because you got to write an article. Bryson, you're going to stay with us because I actually got a couple other things to get over with you. But before I let you go, Kyle, I'm going to ask you this question. Somebody have asked this question. I don't know if it was joking or serious question, but I'll ask you, Kyle. A week from tonight, when we're doing this show after the Arizona game, who's going to have more wins, UCF football or the Orlando Magic?
Well, listen, I'll put it this way. After a strong 2-0 start, it's going to be, I don't see a world where the Magic will be slowed down. I don't know what's going on in Memphis right now. I'm sure I'll check on that. But I will be in the building on Monday with the Pacers, where they might be securing already what is win number 4. No idea there, man. So, by the way, make sure you check that out. Fans First Sports Network. Bing! My writings on the Orlando Magic. So, right now, just on volume, I gotta go with the Orlando Magic. Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner are the men. What can I say?
Did I make a mistake not including the Jaguars there, or was that proper to not include the Jaguars?
The Jags, my answer still would have been the Magic having more wins.
All right. So the point is, you've got some positive team to cover. You covering the Magic. That's really the reason why I asked the question. I just wanted you to mention the fact you're covering the Magic to remind people that Kyle does cover good teams. He does.
Hey,
it doesn't seem that way.
2017. I've covered good teams. That's all I'm saying.
All right, we're going to let you out early, Kyle, so you can get to go write the articles. I know we got the Jags against Green Bay tomorrow as well. You'll be covering that from Jacksonville. As we'll see how much love the Packers will show on Jacksonville.
Yes, my friend Travis D. Holmes will be with me for the Duval Dive, so look out for that. And, of course, my work there as well, Fans First Sports Network. And check out the Duval Dive. Let you know how Gabe Davis does catching the football. Maybe I have a touchdown or two he holds on to. So there you go.
Look at this, Kyle. Don't leave. Evelyn. We got Evelyn here. Look at this. I've always been a Kyle fan. Look at that, Kyle.
Thank you,
Look at
Evelyn.
that.
I appreciate that. I needed that a lot this week. There's been some tough sports.
Oh, we got this. Look at that. They're all coming out of the woodworks. UCF alums. Kyle's great.
Oh.
Let's
Well,
go.
I definitely have to say you have to do both Arizona and Arizona State after the bye, right?
Kyle, you need to call your fan base the pupil of the classmates.
Well, listen, they could all come to the study hall with me. That's right.
Oh, very good. All right, look for the night class for Kyle later tonight on blackandgoldveteran.com, as well as some of the YouTube stuff. And by the way, a lot of basketball coming up over the next week. We're having a lot of heated conversations waiting to come on men's and women's basketball at UCF as well. Kyle, it's always a pleasure.
Looking forward to all of that. Do have some things up on the Black and Gold Banner at YouTube channel. Bing! That Don and Bryson have worked on from Basketball Media Day. Check out all of that if you need something to uplift you. Hearing Coach Johnny Dawkins and Coach Tia Messer talk about these teams doing their thing and being improved teams in the Big 12 next year. A whole lot of positivity that can lift you up. But in the meantime, thank you all, gentlemen, for doing this show with me. Thank you all out there who showed me love. And even if you showed me, hey, thanks for coming in and checking out Night Shift. But until next time, everyone, class dismissed.
Oh, very good. That's Kyle Nash. Fantastic stuff there. Look for that on night class coming up here on blackandgoldbanner.com. All right, we're going to do a few more minutes before we wrap up the show here. Give me both your final thoughts here on the football thing, and then I'm going to go real quick on other UCF items. Like no huddle, couple minutes. I don't want to dwell, but let's kind of put a bow on this football, guys. Moving forward from here. Bryson, you were in the press. What is the tone? Having been in that press conference, what is the tone? Is there still belief in there? Where are we going moving forward here?
I think there is still belief. It's just a matter of, can we execute on it? I think they're just trying to figure out what works. And the injuries obviously don't help either. That definitely also helps it next man up, but they're just Ricky Barber talked about digging deep. He talked about how even playing in these long time of possession games, he says, like, as part of the defense, you need to dig deep and just get off the field. I think that really applies to this entire team. They just have to dig deep. And the other part of that is, though, in my opinion, is that you dig deep so many times, it wears you out after a while. And with a losing streak like this, this is where, because we were in this position last year, Eric, if you remember that, 5-game losing streak, danger of losing bowl eligibility, but they rallied and got bowl eligible. So they're faced with basically that same situation again, where it's pretty much do or die the rest of the way. And this team just needs to dig deep.
Yeah. I agree with Bryson on that. We're going to need to see more from them in terms of just offensive competency. I mean, today it really illustrated that. And, the issue with time of possession, like I raised this to Elo earlier in the show, the disparities haven't been that large, but today it was really, really signified. I see here that UCF's longest time of possession was 3 minutes and 2 seconds. By comparison, BYU's was 8 minutes and 17 seconds, and that was that 18-play, 69-yard drive where they converted on 2 fourth downs, I believe. Just getting the most out of the quarterbacks, especially now that your wide receiver one is down for who knows how long. Just seeing what you can get from a mix of Brown, Risk, and who knows, maybe Colson gets into the fold. It's obvious at this point we're not going to see KJ again unless all 3 of those guys get hurt, which, knock on wood, that does not happen. But yeah, no, we're going to need to see offensive competency moving forward, seeing how the young guys shine, and maybe they rally. But this is a dark time. As you raised, Bryson, second year with a 5-game losing streak. Jeez.
It's crazy, honestly, that it's gotten to this point. But it's also funny that even with the time of possession issues, that we were in a position where we could have potentially tied the game later on, with late in the first half, that turning point we were talking about. Even when the game was going badly, for the most part, you had the chance to get back in the game and you didn't take it. It's that kind of thing. It's Evelyn Warner talked about that finish. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense. But not only finish, you also start. You look at the first and third quarters in this game, and BYU dominated both of them. UCF was only ever able to really get anything going in the second quarter and then during the fourth quarter, but you can argue fourth quarter was pretty much garbage time at that point. So you got to also be able to get out the gate running. And then if you do get it, then you need a finish. They're just trying to they got to be able to put the entire game together at this point. And I feel like they just haven't been able to do that this season.
So let me ask you both this, and then we'll wrap it up from a football standpoint. 4 games left. Arizona at home next Saturday, 3:30. At Arizona State in 2 weeks. You're at West Virginia, host Utah. Rank those 4 games as far as confidence. Hey, I think we can win this game up until, I don't think we have a shot. How would you rank the 4 games?
So 1 is like the most confident we'll win, and 4 is the least confident we win?
Yes.
Okay. So I will say that number 1 for me, I'm most confident in Arizona. Probably it's the space game. Gambler's fallacy saved me. We haven't lost in a space game yet. And Arizona has proven itself to have also been a team that had high expectations coming in and kind of hasn't really met them so far. So I would do number 1 for Arizona. I think number 2 is Utah. It's also at home, senior night. Utah is also kind of has its issues with Cam Rising being out with injury. So that's my number 2. Number 3, I think number 3 is West Virginia. I think obviously this team will want to get revenge against the Mountaineers for their homecoming loss last year. And honestly, I just feel more confident that we'll be able to win in our own time zone than against Arizona State, because with Arizona State, we have to go out to the Pacific time zone, and you've seen how hard it's been for a lot of teams this year to go across multiple time zones this season. And so I'm just not sure how this team is going to handle it, though. I will say that West Virginia and Arizona State are very close together. So it could honestly flip on a dime depending how both of these teams look going into those matches.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Bryson. I think I'm going to go Arizona 1. I think this is a team that's on their heels, possibly even higher expectations than UCF as they started the season, a top 25 team, and the wheels have just kind of come off. And interestingly enough, I wanted to look this up because I knew these two teams were playing. West Virginia leads 17-7 at the half over Arizona at the moment. So I think I'm going to place the Mountaineers at 2. I think that that's a pretty winnable game, especially if you can figure out some of the leaky issues here within the team's stability. From there, I'm going to go Arizona State at 3. With that being an away game, it could be a little more tough, especially if these issues aren't taken care of. And then Utah, I just even without Cam Rising, I'm just not sure they're going to pull that one off. I think that is a really strong team, and as long as their backup continues to get reps, and I might be mistaken. Is there a chance that Rising will come back this season?
No, he's done for the year. He's done for
the year. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. But okay, yeah. So without him, that definitely hurts them. But I'm not sure. So that's my ranking for these 4.
All right, we got it on record. We'll see how you guys do there. Last question, Bryson. People asking, soccer obviously ended. Women's soccer season ended last night. They did not qualify for the Big 12 tournament. Volleyball loses in 4 sets to Houston. They're currently in last in the Big 12. Concern level on both of those programs moving forward is what for you? That's what people are asking.
Yeah. So I think the higher concern level for me is for women's soccer, just because I feel like that Obviously, you have to find a new primary goal scorer with Chloe Netzel gone, and considering that no other player so far on this roster seems to there isn't really an heir apparent for as a leading goal scorer, so that's definitely cause for some nerves. That being said, I do still kind of like the Genesis Perez Watson has showed some promise at goalkeeper, and there's some young talent on women's soccer so it's not all doom and gloom over there. But I am a little more confident, at least in the long term, in volleyball, because I think Jenny Maurer is cognizant of the fact that she has a very young team on her shoulders. And so she's trying to develop this squad right now for 2024, 2025. So in the best position to do that. Heidi Bonde, for instance, looked quite good. We got a chance to look at Cam Shelton a little bit in the last game. So, and of course, you can hear about Jenny Maurer's thoughts on all this stuff. And of course, Coach Tiff's last press conference of the season, along with Chloe Netzel and Genesis Perez Watson on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel. Bing. But yeah, I think as far as this season goes with volleyball, I wouldn't really hold my breath that much. Maybe we could steal something with the talent that is there. Chloe Shear, of course, is still there and very big on vocal leadership. I think with volleyball, the thing to look out for is who is going to be the next vocal leader after Chloe Shear is gone, because so far I haven't really seen that from people just quite yet. It also doesn't help that they're dealing with injuries of their own. Ava Armour has been out for a little bit. Emily Wilson also suffered an injury during the second set against Houston. So the outside hitters have been taking a bit of a hit with volleyball right now. So my optimism for them the rest of the season isn't exactly very, very high. We'll see. But I think but as far as 2025 goes, I'm a little higher on volleyball just because the youngsters there are going to get some solid playing time and look more promising to me than what I'm seeing with women's soccer. It's not that they don't exist, but I think that Tiff just has a tougher road ahead in the offseason compared to Jenny Maurer.
All right, we'll wrap it up with a couple last comments. Chet Sports, feeling bad for RJ reminds me of Joe Burnett staying around for the 2018. Burnett stayed, and 08 was rough. 4-8, no offense that year.
Hey, Burnett Burnett still made the Hall of Fame though.
He still had a good year despite the team's struggles. Evelyn Warner, we need to go into our T-shirt stash and find the finished shirt. That is very true. Finish. We are finished here on Night Shift, folks. Thanks to Bryson, who's out in the press box there. He'll let him finish up stuff there. Check out, obviously, blackandgoldbanneret.com and as well as the YouTube channel there. Lots of coverage there. He had an interview with Kim Wyant, UCF Soccer Hall of Famer. We're going to have Hall of Fame weeks coming up at UCF. Basketball preview stuff coming up later this week. Football, obviously, still playing Arizona. So a lot still going on here. Thanks to Don. He'll be contributing to all that coverage as well. Thanks to Kyle Nash, who joined this earlier. And thank you all of you for joining us and with your comments and questions and always tuning in to the show. For all this everybody, I'm Eric Lopez saying so long from this Night Shift Live, with once again the finals is BYU victorious over UCF in the bounce house. This has been Night Shift. Good night and charge on.